Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Higher Self Hypnosis session. My name is Tracy with Soul Essence Healing and Hypnosis. I have my lovely client, Tiff, here. Her face is covered for privacy, but that's okay. We're just here to hear. So put your earbuds in and enjoy the session. This is part one, the intake session. So we're going to pretend the camera's not even on. This afternoon, part two will be the hypnosis session, which is what we were talking about, Tiff. And that is we call it hypnosis, but it's literally just a really relaxing guided meditation where you're just going to get super relaxed. And instead of like meditation where you kind of keep all the images and pictures and messages in your head, the only difference between that and this is you're just going to be speaking out loud and I'm going to be guiding you with questions. That's the
Okay.
only difference. It really is literally the same thing as meditation, though. So
Awesome.
so nothing to be nervous or worried about at all. And I did send you a link for some coaching on what to expect for part two um, that you can watch during your lunch break. So this is part one where I get to learn everything about you so that once you're under, I know which direction to take the questions because will have our list of questions, really nice format Q&A, but your higher self will all the time throw in things that's like, oh, I wasn't anticipating that, or oh, okay, let's explore that further. And then it
Yeah.
might be like, oh, is that why the relationship between her and her mom is blah, 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 whatever. And so knowing the backstory for all this helps me to be able to really dig and get to the root causes and get some real healing for you. So that's why this is so time consuming and so lengthy. But it
Yeah.
really,
But I
really does
appreciate
come into
that.
play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
it does
looking
come
for.
in. Yeah, it does come into play. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It does come into play very much during these sessions. So thank you for bearing with me and spending the whole day with me.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so you told me where you live and how old you are. So go ahead and you can either start in your life where you are now and work your way backward, or start when you were younger. Just be like, yeah, mom, dad, brothers, sisters, just kind of an overview. If there's trauma or you think there might be trapped emotion somewhere, we'll go into that a little bit more. And if I need clarification, I'll ask you for some examples. Okay.
Okay. Um, yeah, let's start from the harder part. Let's start from past on, I guess. So
Okay.
yeah, I live in Chicago. I grew
Okay.
up in the suburbs of Chicago, so I've pretty much been here my entire life. My parents live in the suburbs as well, so kind of close by. And then I have a little sister who is 25, who actually recently moved like a mile away from me, which is awesome.
Ah,
So
okay.
so she's in the city now too, which is great. In terms of my childhood, um, there's a lot of things I could say. I think like the most negative things probably stand out. So like I was raised in a cult until
Okay.
yeah. So, if you're familiar with Jehovah's Witnesses, I classify them as a cult. Some other people may not. I was raised in that till I was about 14 and I broke away from it, and kind of stood my ground and said, I'm not doing that anymore. And that was really
Okay.
led by my mom. So, my, what was interesting is my mom found the religion when I was a toddler, and she went to Kingdom Hall or church very frequently. We were, very active in the congregation. She brought me and my little sister into it. My dad was not part of it. He wouldn't have anything to do with it. But they stayed together and they're still together. Whether or not they should be together is up is up for debate, but it's like it's all fun. It's like, they've been together a long time now, so they're probably going to stick with it. Um, so that was kind of interesting as a child, kind of growing up in a split household where it's like, I could never really figure out what was the right thing for me as a child. Um, and then I went through a lot of periods when I was younger, like elementary school age, where I just like would refuse to go to school. I didn't feel like I was fitting in. I feel like my social experience wasn't maybe as developed as some other kids at around that age, maybe because of growing up in the church and growing up with a certain mindset and restrictions and rules and kind of all that stuff. Um, and so then I actually, stopped going to school. My mom had to homeschool me for a few years. Um, and during that time, when I was pretty young. I was like between the ages of like 9 and 11. Like they diagnosed me with like major depression. And I
Mm.
think I had I don't really don't know what it was. That was a very dark time as a child. I was just high anxiety all the time. I was crying. I was very sensitive to sound and certain things and situations. I would get scared and anxious and depressed and just feel like my entire world was upside down. Um, Even just by hearing birds chirping, it was like very weird. It's just a very
Mm.
strange, confusing time of my life. And that was actually shortly after my grandparents both passed away, who I was pretty close to growing up too. So it was kind of just a bunch of things at once.
Okay, hold
Um,
on. Hold on. We're going to
yeah.
go back just a little bit, get a little more
Okay.
clarification.
Yes.
Um, so with regard to the religion, um, mom made you and sister go.
Hmm.
And so what kinds of restrictions did you feel like you had that just didn't jive with you? Like what kinds of,
Um, yeah, I just feel like I was trying to uphold myself to something that didn't feel right or didn't resonate with me. And basically, I don't know if you're familiar with Jehovah's Witnesses, but it's very much so one of those religions where you as a Jehovah's Witness, like your family and friends is within the congregation. Everyone else is worldly. Everyone else is bad
okay.
to a sense, right? So I didn't I wasn't really allowed to have many like neighbor friends growing up or like friends at school like a normal kid would. You know, I couldn't celebrate holidays. I couldn't have a birthday. I couldn't like even things as like a young child like little girls and boys start like masturbating, right? Like I was like, it's something that like stuck with me so hard for like many years when I was younger because like I started doing that as like a young girl and I thought like, oh my God, like I need to repent and go to the congregation elders and tell them what I've been doing. Like it was just a very fear-based religion, right?
Mm.
And similar to other Christian religions as well, you're taught that Armageddon is coming when you least
Mhm.
expect it, so you better behave. You better be doing the right thing. You better be out there preaching. You better be going door to door, trying to convert more people to Jehovah's Witnesses. So I just always felt like there was this impending doom upon me and the world that gave me a lot of anxiety as a young child. And there was also a ton of spotlight on me in the church as well, all the time.
What do you mean?
Um, Trying to figure out exactly why, but I think especially as I was going through puberty, a lot of the elders in the church were like, "Oh, Tiffany's going through puberty. Like other boys in the congregation are taking interest in her. We need to keep reminding her that if boys are trying to talk to her, she needs to make the conversation about God." Like very like specific things like that where I just felt like they were always trying to groom me in one way or the other. When I say groom, I don't mean groom in the sense of today's term where it's like almost like a sexual grooming manner. I just mean
Right.
like they were just trying to groom me into this. It's like they saw a lot in me and they really wanted to groom me to be this higher voice within the congregation. I thought that I would be there over time. So that everyone needed to keep their eyes on me, I
Mm.
guess.
Keep you
Yeah,
pure.
keep me pure, right? Especially
Okay.
since they knew that my father wasn't in the religion. They were like, oh, us elders of the congregation need to step in and be a fatherly figure to Tiffany. Yeah.
Did your parents ever argue about the fact that dad wouldn't be part of the church?
Yeah, they argued a lot growing up. But it was something that my mom knew was never going to change for my dad. So it was less her arguing to him. It was more so him being like, what the hell? This isn't normal, constantly being passive aggressive, sarcastic about the religion, sarcastic and aggressive towards me when I was younger because he'd be like, why don't you just be a normal kid? Why are you wearing dresses all the time? Right. And I was like, well, that's like what I was raised to do. I have to wear dresses to go to church. Like, I was just a little kid, but he was always like, he was very pessimistic about the whole thing, understandably, right, to a degree. But it absolutely caused a lot of divide in our household and made me feel pretty shitty as a kid because I didn't know which God to serve, so to speak, right? Do I try to live the normal worldly life that I'm more attractive to and that my dad would want for me? or do I need to appease, my mom and the congregation and, uphold my responsibilities there? So,
Mm. So what happened when you were 14? I'm curious. You found your voice, right?
yeah, yeah. So I actually, so I stopped homeschooling and I went back to school for eighth grade. And which was a little like rocky for me because I was a little awkward having been, homeschooled the last few years. So I was like kind of catching up to a lot of kids, and I made a lot of really good like best friends. Like I was having I was having fun for the first time in my life in like a long time. I was just being like a fun, stupid little 13-year-old. And yeah, like realizing what the world was. And I'm like, oh, this isn't that bad. Like this is great. And because of that, as I got more and more involved with those types of friends, I just kind of, started separating in my mind away from the church and the doctrines and everything I was made to believe, to the point where, we had to go to Kingdom Hall or church 3 times a week. And to my mom, I was just like, I can't go today. I don't want to go today. And I always like kind of fought on and off as a kid, like no kid wants to go to church 3 times a week, right?
Right.
And over time, it just became like more and more. I'd be like, I'm not going. And then, after a while, I'd be like, oh, wow, I haven't gone in 3 weeks to one single session. And then eventually it was like, okay, I'm done. Like, you can't make me go anymore. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to live that life. Um, and then I got declared as like inactive by the congregation. So like people weren't allowed to talk to me that were in the congregation, like that whole thing. Like she is gone. God forgive her. Like me as a little 13, almost 14-year-old, right? Like, come on,
Right.
ridiculous. And then shortly after that, probably within the next like 6 months, my mom stopped going as well.
Ah.
So, and then of course my little sister wasn't going, right? She was very young at that time. She was probably, you know, like 7. Um,
So she was spared for most of it.
yeah, she was spared for most of it for sure.
Yeah. And
So
I
yeah,
bet
I mean,
dad was happy that that all ended, right?
I think he was probably very relieved that things turned out normally, um, for the time being. Yeah, I think he was definitely relieved. And it obviously like solved a bit of the conflict between my mom and my dad about that. And my mom, like, my mom is still, she believes in God for sure. Her and I have never really talked about her leaving Jehovah's Witnesses and like what happened and what was going through her mind. But um, I think that she knew that it was something that she couldn't even uphold anymore either. It's so much pressure all the time. And for a multitude of reasons isn't is I highly disagree with the doctrine. So yeah,
Well, and looking at it from her point of view, she probably got to hear a lot of stuff about, shaming or whatever from you not going anymore and things like that. And
probably.
kind of,
Yeah.
mom does that or. But did you
Yeah.
guys fight about it or she was like, okay, fine, don't come today? Or was it kind of friction between the two of you?
It was definitely friction,
Okay.
but it wasn't super long lasting friction. It was
Okay.
friction of like the same kind of friction of like you need to get up and like go to school today or you need to like get your chores done. Like this is
Right.
getting really frustrating, but like she never pushed me that hard because I think that she knew somewhere deep down that I wasn't going to stay no matter what, you know?
Right. Okay. Well, it
Yeah.
was interesting that you chose to have that experience, right?
Yeah.
Of
Yeah. Very
having that
interesting.
religion, right?
Mhm.
Um, so let's go back to that dark phase where you were diagnosed with depression.
Mhm.
Um, do you want to know what was going on at that time by asking your higher self, or you're just like, no, it's not even relevant and I'm done with it and it's over?
Um, I think that it's not the most important thing I would like to discuss, but if we have
Okay.
time, I
Okay.
think I would like to go back there, but maybe just not at first because now that I'm thinking about it, like it might still have some touch points into my present,
Okay.
right? Of like getting back to that place. I rarely ever go back to that place or have those feelings that I did back then, but sometimes they creep up.
Right.
So yeah, maybe if we have time, we can get to
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So, okay. So after that, you started having all these great friendships and
Mm.
loving not being part of the religion. So, okay, so continue on from there. What's next?
Yeah, so eighth grade was a fun year. Then I went on to high school. High school was pretty fun in the beginning, and then yeah, I mean, I made a lot of friends. I was having just like kind of like a normal early high school life, and then I met my boyfriend when I was 16, and that was a pretty bad abusive relationship for 5 years. And unfortunately, it was one of those relationships where, I was 16, I was still kind of in the middle of high school. And with my relationship with him, unfortunately, I lost like my best friends from that. And I don't know if it was directly because, well, it definitely was a little bit of him maybe trying to isolate me a little bit or maybe like push me away from them and them being really turned off by him as well. So I kind of like when I entered this relationship with him, I lost a lot of my support system in terms of friends that I had had for the past 3 years, my best friends. Um, one of which I have back, like my best friend. We're still best friends to this day. But yeah, that was like a very tumultuous, tough time. I think the reason why like I allowed myself at 16 to get in a relationship with this person, even though now as an adult I know that there was a billion red flags, right? Like from like the first month, right? I should
Right,
have
right,
would have
right.
never taken anything like that nowadays. Um, it's just because like I didn't really have like a lot of guidance as a kid. I had like the church, but my parents never talked to me about anything, right? Like my parents couldn't anything that had to do with emotions or me crying or getting frustrated, the answer was always the same and it was, well, we just didn't talk about things like that when we were your age or like we just didn't, focus on those things. Like, you keep that to yourself kind of stuff. So like I don't know. My mom and I had a conversation a couple years ago about like him abusing me and she was like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "You don't remember that?" I'm like, you don't remember like me coming home and like not being able to hear out of my right ear for a week because he like hit me so hard. Like, and she was like, well, we just thought that you guys were both just like, you'd both just got into heated fights. It was both of your faults, right? You were always yelling at him and there were periods where you got too needy. So, it was on both of you kind of thing. And I was like, well, yeah, sure. I had a part in it too, but it would have been nice for my parents to like have stepped in at some point in those 5 years and been like, we see what's going on here. We're separating you. Like we need to help separate you guys. Um, but yeah, he was interesting. I'm sure he was going through his own stuff, but he was very controlling. He um he thought that things should be a certain way. He didn't like it if I slept over at a girlfriend's house and had a sleepover. He didn't like it if I didn't call him at a certain time. Um, he definitely like cheated on me a couple of times and then like act like it was my fault. And I was too young I just didn't know any better. He was my sun and my moon at that time. Like I'd never been in love before. It was young love. I was dumb. Um, but yeah, it was just like very tumultuous and like really bad I can't believe I was in it for 5 years. So
Yeah,
that lasted
he was a narcissist, obviously. Yeah.
it's really bad. And like I hate this. And like actually that's one thing that I wanted to talk about today. Like I don't want him in my mind. And I feel like in the past year, for some reason, he keeps coming up in my mind and it's really bothering me, like in a
Mm.
dream or just in my thoughts. Or like I saw that he looked at my LinkedIn like a few months ago and I keep thinking about that. And I'm like, oh God, I was like, what? Like, I would love to act like he never existed, even though I know that's not possible. There was a lesson there to learn. But if there's any kind of connection between the two of us, I would love to break it and never re-invite it again, if that's possible.
Okay. Yeah. Um, Ex-boyfriend, we'll just call him the ex-boyfriend that you had in high school. But you said he was physically abusive too, verbally, emotionally, physically.
Yeah, physically too. And we would both get into like physical fights sometimes, but so like I wasn't totally innocent, but like he would come at me. Yeah, it wasn't good. Like there was a couple times, like there were one time his mom called the police on him. There was one time he like put out a lit cigarette on my chest because I like made a comment about his grandpa he didn't like he was just a very violent person. Um, yeah. It's weird. It feels like that was like a different life. That was like a different Tiffany.
I know they do, don't they?
Yeah.
And you said one time he hit you on your ear so hard you couldn't hear for a while, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, there was a lot of that. So it was a pretty good blend of emotional and physical abuse.
Okay, so let's go to the questions. um,
And I did make a list of other questions too for the hypno whenever we get to that as
yeah,
well.
absolutely. Okay. So yeah, why are you think and how many years ago? Because I know you're fairly young, but that was what, 15 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, so that was 16 to 21 years old. So I'm 33 now, so that was like 12 years ago
Okay,
that
so
it,
it
that it
ended
ended. That it
12 years
ended.
ago. How did it actually end?
So there was I mean, it took like a good, realistically, I could both say that it took a year to end, and that it took 6 months to end, and then it took like 2 months to end. It was like very like back and forth, and we slowly kept drifting apart, like each big argument, each big blowout. The way that it ended, I think it was shortly after my 21st birthday, and we were just doing our own things at that point. Like he was like going out with his friends. I would see him like once a week. We would like hook up or whatever. Um and then yeah, I think I remember the last time talking to him, I was like pulled over on the side of the road and I was just like crying pretty heavily because I think I knew that it was like this was done. There was no going back. And he, for whatever reason, was very calm about it. And he was like, I feel sorry for you. I'm sorry that you're so upset about this. Like, and it was like one of those kind of things where he definitely felt like he had the power in that moment and he did. Um, and then yeah, and then we like hung up the phone from there. But then he would always try to like, as he always would, we would break up or he would be like, I'm done with you, like fuck you, like whatever. And then he would come crying back to me a month later and be begging me back. Like something like that did happen after that, but I was like, no, like we're done. And then I started having so much fun, and then my life became more fun again once I got rid of
Mm,
him and I was like living life to its fullest. It was great. Yeah. So I think I mourned the relationship a lot while we were still in it. And then by the time we were actually done, I just started living life and it was like great. And then yeah, and then he randomly still pops up in my mind and I'm like, "Oh, that's like a bad dream I really want to forget. I hate feeling that feeling again."
okay, so let me go back to the questions that gave me a little bit more. So, okay, with regard to her high school boyfriend, is there any healing on a physical, mental, or emotional level that would benefit her now? And if yes, can you tell us, um, can you do that for her and tell us what that looks like as you're doing it? And then, um, specifically, is there any healing her body wants on a cellular memory level? I can't spell. Memory level from the trauma and abuse from that relationship that you could give or clear her body of now? And if yes, can you tell us what that looks like as you do it? And then breaking the connection now. Are there any cords, energetic cords that need to be cut between her and her ex-boyfriend? Or what is it that is still keeping him in her mind that you could dissolve for her? And can you do that now? And tell us what that looks like as you do it. And then, are there any soul fragments of hers that he is holding now, or that she is holding of his? And if yes, can you return those soul fragments to the quote unquote rightful owner after cleansing them? And tell us what that looks like as you do it.
If it's easier, you can call him Jay too. I don't know. Either one is fine, ex-boyfriend or Jay,
Ex-boyfriend
whatever.
Jay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, got it. Does that sound like we covered all of it?
Yeah, I like the way that you worded those questions. I think that an answer will come from one of those questions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, just like I always wonder if there's like energetic imprints left on your body, like on a cellular level. Because I mean, just like that book, Body Keeps the Score, right? That stuff can get stored in our body on a cellular level too.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
want to get rid of if there's any like energetic imprints or anything like that. I mean, sometimes when I think there would be, the higher self is like, nope. And so we'll ask just in case, right?
Okay. Okay.
All right. Okay. So you started having fun.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
started having a lot of fun. So I was like 22.
Were you still living
Um,
at home then or
I was still living at home then. So all of my girlfriends that I had met at that time all lived in the city of Chicago. So I wanted to be close to them. I decided not to go away for college. So I went to college in the suburbs in between the city. So I was staying with my parents at that time. I didn't move out until I was 24. So leading up between that breakup and then my best friends, I met a really good new best friend who I'm still best friends with today, 11, 12 years later. Yeah, we were just having a ton of fun. We were going out all the time. We were trying new things. We were going on little road trips. Like some of the best, like I had the best 20s I feel like I could ask without maybe as much travel as I wanted to do, but I do so much travel in my 30s now, it's fine. Like it was amazing. Um, so yeah, I did that. And then I met my next boyfriend after that when I was like 23. Well, I didn't meet him. Him and I had been friends for years. And then I started dating this guy, Dave, and we were together 4 years.
okay,
Probably
hold on.
not
So
a
you
ton,
how old were you when you started dating Dave?
23.
Okay. 23.
So 23 to 27 is when I
Okay.
dated him.
Okay.
Probably not a ton to focus on there. Loved him to death, still have love for him. We were very good friends before the relationship. We lived together a little while during the relationship. After the breakup, we were both pretty pissed at each other, but then we became friends again. And now I'm married and he's engaged. Like there's nothing that's hanging on between
Okay.
us. There was no like crazy trauma or anything like that. It just didn't work out. Um,
Okay.
Lucky to have dated him. He was also, one of my very best friends at that time as well. So did that. Still had a very tight friend group while we were dating, after we were dating. Um, after we broke up when I was 27. Um, well, I should just say, meanwhile, before I get into that, I had a bunch of like odd jobs throughout college. And then like a year after I graduated college, I started at the company that I'm at now, or actually I'm leaving now, which we'll get into more in a little bit. But I've been there for 8.5 years. So I started that job around the age of 20,
I'm
about to be
sorry, you cut out
25.
the age of 25, did you say?
Yeah,
Okay.
25 is when I started that job.
Okay.
And it was just amazing, like crazy sense of community. It's a software company. It's called ad tech or advertising technology. And we're a startup company in the tech space, and then we went public, which was amazing. And it was just like a fight and a cause that I truly believed in. Like so much fun at that job. So I had that while I was dating Dave. I've had that for the last 8.5 years. So that's been a very constant in my life, is the family and the community and the coworkers of that job has been a big constant for me and shaped who I am a lot.
Mm.
So there's that going on, while I'm dating Dave. And then after we break up, I started um, dating around a lot, having fun, honestly, like having a lot of fun. Also having a little bit of like single anxiety too. Because at this point, I'm looking back at my life and I'm like, oh, wow, I was in a 5 year relationship and a 4 year relationship, and I'm only 27. I'm like, that's kind of it's a lot of time in relationships, Kind of wish I stayed single more. Um, so yeah, I was dating around with a couple of people that I dated for like 3 months here, 3 months there. Um, Still having a ton of fun with the same friend groups, traveling a lot now, going to different parts of the world, um, elevating in my career quite a bit. And then I met my husband when I was 28. Yeah, met him when I was 28. So we've been married a little over 2 years now. And and yeah, I mean, like we had such a I feel like it was kind of like a fairy tale the way our romance started. We like met at a party, we went on a first date, and it was kind of there from that. Like, but we're two creatures that are very much so on the same page. We enjoy the same things in life, and we are absolute best friends to one another. As much as he frustrates me, and we'll talk about this too, like I get so irritated with him, and there are real problems in our relationship. Like I still love him so much, and I think the sun shines out of his ass. Like even though he's so frustrating, he kills me. Um, but I love the guy. So yeah, we've been married for a little over 2.5 years. We've been together like 4 years at this point. And yeah, as soon as we got married, we had the pandemic, right? So we were like locked in with each other for 2 years.
Right. That's right. You got married right before then.
Right before, like a couple months before. And then we were like, oh my God, this is not, because we weren't used to working from home, and we were both working from home, and we were on top of each other all the time. And then we're like, oh my God, like we miss missing each other. We still miss missing each other because all we do is stare at each other all day. So it's a very crash course into marriage. We're like,
Right.
I feel like we've been married like 10 years. Like, is that
Right.
a good thing or a bad thing? And we're like, it's probably a good thing. I don't know. Yeah.
Right. That's funny. Are you
So,
both still working from home?
yeah, so he's still working from home. He's also been in the startup world for a while, so he'll like work and help out a new startup like every couple of years. So he's doing that right now. I am still at that same company technically. I'm leaving the company. I've actually been out on a leave for the past 3 months for like basically you can boil it down to mental health. I'm like, this is too much. Like I'm in a global role now, and it's very time consuming, high responsibility. I have to be on calls at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. at night. Sometimes I'm dealing with different time zones internationally. And um, I don't know, it's like kind of fantastic, but it got to be too much. And I'm not having fun anymore. A lot of things have changed from being a startup pre-IPO to post-IPO, where it feels very much like what's the it's like climbing the corporate ladder, very show pony, very political, very political all the time. So it's time for me to go away. It's been 8.5 years, but I'm leaving a community that I love, and I think a lot of people are disappointed in me. But it is what it is. I'm doing it for myself. So
Right.
kind of been in like a little midlife crisis right now because leaving my company of 8.5 years, which has been like a marriage for me in some ways. My husband and I are increasingly unhappy in Chicago, and we greatly desire to move internationally, which is causing some anxiety and stress because we haven't, necessarily been able to figure that out yet. And then there's also like the side topic of like whether we want to have children or not. We don't know. Oh, and that's another thing as well too, I should probably call out. So when I say this, I'm not saying it from a place of like guilt. It's not something that I think about very frequently. But as I get older and I'm of the child rearing age, right? I did have an abortion when I was 23 with my boyfriend Dave. So as soon as we started dating, that happened. We had an abortion. And then actually, when Greg and I first started dating, about 6 months in, I did get pregnant and we ended up having a DNC. Well, they said that the pregnancy wasn't viable because it was a chemical pregnancy and not a real one. So they didn't classify it as an abortion, but it was non-viable. So I had to have that terminated as well.
So is it like a tubal pregnancy or something?
So no, it was an egg had been fertilized technically, but there was no embryo growing inside of the egg. There was basically they call it a chemical pregnancy. I
Oh, okay.
don't remember all the details of that. Um, but that was like pretty traumatic for me for like the month surrounding that. So yeah, and now
What
I'm
made
at
that
this,
traumatic? Let me ask a little bit about that.
well, because I feel like I had to make a decision. But then in my last doctor's appointment, they kind of confirmed, like, hey, like, there's no embryo growing anyway. So, like, we know that you probably are leaning towards having this aborted because you're not married and you don't want to have a child right now. But just so you know, it probably wouldn't manifest a full pregnancy anyway with how things are looking. So, I don't know. I had already been through it once when I was 23 or something like that, right? In the same vein. So, like, it was a traumatic time because I just felt like, oh my God, my entire life could change in a minute. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't thinking about this. Like him and I aren't married. Like, so it was just high anxiety. Not necessarily super traumatic, but just high anxiety.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was
Um,
with your husband now, right?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So you went
Um,
through that, you had the abortion, and so now you're looking at the fact that you're a little bit older and you're wondering if you want to have kids.
yeah, and that's something I hold a lot of like confusion and guilt over it because I think that people that have that inherent desire to be like, oh my God, I can't wait to have kids. I love kids. I want to be a mother. Like, and I do love kids. I love other people's kids, but like, I don't have that inherent desire inside of me to be like, oh, I can't wait to get pregnant. And part of me, and I don't know if it's society and what it speaks to us, like makes me feel like I should feel like guilty or selfish or maybe a little bit shameful about that. Logically, I don't think that that's correct, but him and I are kind of in the same page on that. We're just not really sure if we want to or not. And I think like, I have a few years to decide that still, but it's something that's on my mind. And, because of the fact that I had those two occurrences happen to me, I'm like, does that mean anything on a spiritual level? Does that mean that I'm supposed to be? Does it mean that I'm not supposed to be a mother? Like,
Do you want to
should I
ask
really?
your higher self if you have any contracts with any baby spirits?
Yeah, I would like to ask that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Does she have any soul contracts with any baby spirits to bring them into the earth? And then the answer is yes. Do you have any questions following that or no?
I would say like my curiosity would be, man, so many things are coming to mind, but like, do you get as specific as like when
Well,
you get like,
there's so many timelines. So asking
yeah,
future stuff is like,
it's
so
hard.
if we ask more of like, oh, I'm trying to think of like what would a question even be? Like, okay, let me try to put myself in your shoes. What would I want to know? You do
Mhm.
have it. Okay. Um, um,
And does it and will it or should it be or will it be fulfilled in this timeline? I
right.
don't know.
Well, we're talking about this timeline.
Okay,
So
yeah.
like, yeah, do you have any soul contracts with any baby spirits? And if yes, how many?
Yeah, how many would be
Right?
good to know?
How many? Because maybe it's just one, and then you're like, oh, one and done,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If yes, how many spirit souls does she have? Does she have contracts with? And is there anything you could tell her now about those contracts regarding
Or even like
timing or anything else?
yeah, or even just like why, I guess. Is that a weird question? Like why me? I don't know. Like why would you choose me? Or
Okay. Okay. And why have they chosen her to be their mother? Yeah, sounds
okay,
good.
we'll find out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like a big part of that too, I touched on a little bit, is just like we have to, before we figure out much else in our lives, like work wise or other things, we need to understand what our living situation is going to be. So we've explored options of, do we want to keep the house that we bought here in Chicago and rent it out, during the winter and like live in Costa Rica in the winter or something? Or like, do we want to move to Spain? We're in love with Spain. We love Europe, but we want to move there. We have, fortunately, we have the means and the ability to do those things. So yeah, if there's anything that we could ask that could help give us a little bit more clarity on what we should be looking for when we make this big decision, that would be very helpful.
Okay, yeah, let's absolutely do that. So the options that you're considering are Costa Rica and Spain.
I mean, we're very open. Like Costa Rica would be amazing. We're thinking about like maybe buying an Airbnb property there, and then maybe we can like live there sometimes or be there sometimes and also rent it out and make some passive income that way. We're also in love with Spain. Like I could see myself totally like retiring in Italy one day. I'm so in love with Italy. Like there are just so many things that we'd love to do. Realistically, what I would like more than anything
Hmm.
is to not necessarily have a home, to keep the house that we own in Chicago and to roam around every 2 months. Now,
Mm.
fortunately, because as I mentioned before, my company, I was there pre-IPO, like I've inherited a lot of money from that, which is amazing. Another thing I probably want to talk about. Um, but those two things kind of tie together, right? Is like we have to make sure that the money will continue to be in place over time, let's say, years down the road for us to do that. Um, yeah. There is a question that I would like to ask, money oriented.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think about how to like phrase it, but like some of the things that I just described to you about maybe being fluid with our home or having different homes, like I feel guilt and shame around that a little bit because it's almost like I feel like in my programming, like that's not what people do. People, you have to work really hard. You have to have a job, right? If you don't have a job, you're mentally lazy. I've also worked my ass off for 8.5 years, right? Like I didn't get to where I am without knowing what hard work is, right? I really
Hmm.
rolled up my sleeves, but I'm very tired right now. And I got to a very unhealthy place months ago, which with like probably drinking too much and self-medicating. And I was like, I need to take a break. And since then, it's become very abundant that we want to be moving around a lot more and that we're not happy here. So I'm like, there's that. And then I also feel this guilt and shame that I'm able to do that or have these conversations about money because money has always just been coming to me like more than I could imagine for like, especially the past few years. So I don't know what to do with that. But then, of course, on the same token, I also want to keep manifesting more money. So it's like this guilt of having what I've achieved and
Mm.
this desire to keep that up as well. Um,
You think there's fear around that, that it could disappear?
yes.
Okay.
Um, it's just scary for me. I've been at this company for 8.5 years. I've only really known this and I've been so well taken care of. So to not have that safety anymore is scary, but at the same time, I feel like I need to do it. I'm making the right decision by leaving because it hasn't been healthy anymore. Um,
So do they know you're leaving or no?
yeah,
Okay.
I'm giving them my official word tomorrow, but most people are already aware, except for some people that might be upset.
Got it. Okay. So how did you guys grow up in your family financially? Does this have any root in how you grew up or no?
Yeah, money was always a pretty big issue in the room growing up. We weren't poor, like poverty line poor, but we were, lower middle class, and my parents did live sometimes paycheck to paycheck, sometimes a little bit above paycheck to paycheck. So, so yeah, that was always a thing. That was always a thing when
So
we were
you always
younger.
saw kind of like you associated maybe um hard work with and the need to earn, right? Work hard and that whole thing. It sounds like it might be some programming in there as far as like you're like, wow, I'm so young and I don't need to do that. And but that's not what I saw growing up, and that's not the programming I have.
Right. So I feel like very blessed and also guilty about that blessing. Um, I think because, my parents are, you know, 60 and 61 now and still in some regards they're kind of they're a lot better than they were for sure, but they still don't want to fork up the money to take a vacation that they've wanted to take for like 5 years. And I'm like, I will help you out with anything that you need, but like they're still of that kind of scarcity mindset. So,
Mm,
that's still in my life a little bit.
mm.
And I don't have a good relationship with my mom. We barely talk, but I don't necessarily know if we have time, maybe we could get into that, but I don't,
Well, tell me
it kind of is
quickly,
what
and
it
we'll go
is.
back to all this, but what's going on with mom that you barely talk to her, and do you talk to dad?
I don't have a tight relationship with either of my parents. Like a tight relationship. I've got a good like surface level relationship with both of them. Definitely do. When we're together for more than a day, it gets very difficult for me. My dad is kind of fun to be around, but he's very and I have some of this quality too, but he could just like fly off the hat, just get like really angry out of nowhere, or
Mhm.
get like, I'm not passive aggressive, but he can get super passive aggressive and sarcastic, and it just brings the whole like mood of the room down. Especially if he's drinking, I can't handle it. I'm very much I act like a parent to my children, or sorry, I act like a parent to my
Your
parents
parents.
a lot,
Okay.
which isn't healthy. So, and truth be told, I think that I'm pretty at peace with this, and I have been for several years because the way that I view my parents is like they did the best with what they had. They didn't have a lot of resources. They weren't taught to have empathy or show empathy or talk about their emotions. Like, I forgive them. I can't really blame them. But now, as an adult, I just don't engage that much Um, and I don't really feel that sad about it. You know, it would be nice if we were closer, but I don't think at this point in life anybody is changing who they are. So I just, keep a respectful distance, but I still love them. Um, but like with my mom, her and I just even just speaking about very casual things, like we just can't really establish a connection, unfortunately. It
Mm.
kind of is what it is. So and usually when I'm around them, my mom especially will always bring it to a negative place. My parents have always vented to me a lot, and my mom is always venting to me about my dad or her work. And it's been the same thing for 10 years. It's just immediately see me start venting to me about everything. And I just don't have the,
So it's almost like she just sorry, I gotta turn my little heater on here.
yeah,
So it's almost like she almost like uses you like her psychic toilet, like her emotional toilet, like, oh, you're here, somebody to listen to. Let me just dump all this stuff on you that's been bothering me or, annoying
yeah.
me. My dad, your dad and her work.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of like that. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of a person that a lot of people open up to as it is. Like strangers on the street will come up to me and start opening up to me about stuff. That happens to a lot of people, but like so that's not a new thing for me, but my parents especially like I don't think they ever stop to think like, "Oh, this is my child. Maybe I shouldn't put all of this on her." And they've been doing it since I was a young child,
Mm.
right? Young child. Um so yeah, so now I just don't I just um don't do more than I have to with them, but I still care about them a lot.
Have you ever told either one of them like this is not okay or no?
Um, yes, yes. Both my sister is more in a very like active, angry state with them,
Mm.
where I'm like, when you get older, I think you're just gonna maybe have a little bit more pity for them than you do anger. They're just people that don't have a lot of tools at their fingertips. I have talked to both my mom and dad about it, some over the phone, some via text message, and it's very hard to get past. My mom especially will say, well, I just don't want to talk about that. I just don't want to talk about it. And
Mm.
you can't get past that wall once that's there. No matter if you're angry or nice or whatever. And if you talk to my dad about it, some of his like aggressive or passive aggressive behaviors will be like, oh no, I was just kidding. You're so sensitive. I'm just kidding. Like, relax, Jesus. So it's just kind of like, you know what? It's not really worth my energy to go to try
Right.
to fight down those walls.
Yeah, yeah, they're not going to
So,
change, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
you couldn't establish boundaries with them there. So it's like, I'll establish boundaries over here then, right? And so
Mhm.
it's not like you didn't give your parents a chance. That's what I was wondering. Like you were clear with them, like, this is not okay. So we can have a relationship if you don't do these things. But then if they still choose to do them, it's like, okay, then I have no other choice but to separate myself a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you do, I was getting it. You do seem to have very healthy boundaries now, not so much with the first boyfriend in high school, but
Yes.
now it seems like you do. Do you agree?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I have very good boundaries with pretty much everyone.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I just realized over time, like my emotional and mental health matters more than trying to sacrifice anything for other people, unless it's, an emergency situation. But yeah, I tend to be that person a lot of people kind of lean on. So yeah, I've become a lot better with boundaries over time.
Okay, so going back to the money thing, let's go back to the moving and the money thing, and we'll put
Yeah.
questions to those. We got sidetracked a little bit, but that was good. That was good.
Hmm.
Okay, so her and her husband want to live and travel internationally, um, and have also thought about keeping their home in Chicago. Um, they're considering several places like Costa Rica, Italy, and Spain. What advice or direction can you give them in regards to this desire and no, that's it, this desire.
Yeah.
And then um, she feels some guilt and shame about being in a position financially and to be able to live that type of lifestyle. Is that guilt and shame coming from a program she has? And if yes, where is she holding the guilt and shame? Guilt and shame in her body. And can you remove it now? Send it to Creator's Light and replace it instead with um, what do we want to replace guilt and shame with? Like, what's the opposite? What would we think?
Well, I don't know if it's the exact opposite, but I think excitement is always a good choice where
Yeah.
it can be. Yeah, excitement or hopefulness. Um,
Yes, the energy. I like hopefulness. Energies of excitement and hopefulness.
because realistically, that's something that someone should be very excited about, right? You know?
Yeah.
So, and hopeful.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. Yes. Okay. And then the finances part about she has a little bit she has been blessed financially, but wonders, but has a little bit of fear. But has a little bit of underlying fear that it could dry up, disappear,
That it could, yeah, dry up.
dry up.
Hmm.
What can you tell her about that? And is there any program or belief that can be addressed here? And then, of course, that's where lots of follow-up questions come in because it
Yeah.
just depends on what your higher self says, right?
Okay.
Um, did I cover all those?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you got the basis, the essence of it, I would say.
Oh, okay.
Um,
And any questions about your work?
oh, yes. Okay. So I have a list of questions
Okay.
on my notes on my screen I was going to bring up too. So if I was talking to you a month ago, I would probably be like, oh my God, should I be leaving or should I not be leaving this job? What advice do I have for myself? But I think we're past that point, right? Like I know that I'm going and it's the right decision. But I think like the next question is kind of like if there's anything that could point me towards eventually, not right now, eventually that will point me more towards something I'm passionate about would be amazing. There's already opportunities coming to me. I don't have another job lined up. My goal is to probably not work for a year and really just focus on myself, and or traveling and just being a human and just living life. This is the first time I felt like a real human in many years since my job has been so demanding.
Mhm.
Um, so I think eventually finding something that I'm passionate about and I have that same draw and desire that I did when I first started at my company. I think that that can happen again for me. Um, but it might be from an entrepreneurship kind of lens rather than, a tech company or, any other kind of company necessarily. I also have a lot of passion and to be truthful, rage. I have a lot of rage inside for everything that's going on in this country right now and what's been going on a long time. Like I'm a pretty hardcore feminist. And yeah, I mean, I probably spend a little bit too much time hearing and seeing and researching and all the inequalities and fucked up shit that's going on. Another reason why we also kind of want to get out of the US sometimes is because I personally can't agree with a lot that's going on here. Um,
Okay, so hold on, because this is going to be a little bit bigger.
mhm.
Um, so why do you feel this like rage and stuff like this? Do you feel like you're meant to help do something about it, or it just infuriates you and you're just like, I want to run and get away from it?
Yeah, I feel like I'm meant to help do something. And I've been feeling this feeling slowly rise, I would say, over the past couple of years. I don't know what it is, but the way that I could describe it to you is I feel like there's something inside of me that's dormant right now or has been dormant and it's starting to come out. But like I feel like I was just meant for something a lot bigger and I don't know what that is necessarily. Um, and I don't know what direction that could go in. I'm not trying to go into politics. I don't think that I can withstand that on this planet. But I want to make a difference in people's lives. And like, I am kind of just like, I can be a natural leader to some extent. And I would just love to find a way to put the people skills that I have to use and the passion that I have, wherever that comes from, and really put it towards something. I don't know what that is. While at the same time, just as a reminder, I'm trying not to focus on the next thing right now and just take some time to have more peace. But
Mhm.
eventually I want to get there. So if there's any advice that my higher self has for me,
Got it.
on things I should start thinking about maybe or looking into or, any North Star that there is for me.
Ideas. So just to be clear, because this is not a passion of mine, right? So
Mhm.
it's not on my radar. So like
Okay.
inequalities and things are not on my number one. I don't
Yeah.
ever listen to media and have not for years.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
just don't,
Yeah.
I'm not in the know about that, but that's because that's not my purpose too.
Yeah.
Like I would never want to use my energy or my brain. That's why I asked you that question. I would never want to use my energy or my brain space for something that's not my purpose because I can get angry all I want, but if it's not my purpose to do something about it, what is that anger doing? It's just causing me to like not have peace inside of me,
Yeah. Very
right?
true. And I have thought that. I'm like, should I even just be like, can I make a change about this? And then I'm like, my rage is so strong, or like my passion is so strong. I say those interchangeably that I just feel like, no, I don't think
Right.
I think there's
So do
something
you
more to
mean like
this.
pay and job opportunities, or what are you talking about when you say inequality?
When I talk about inequality, man, it just goes to so many different levels. But I think that men for thousands of years have kind of mistreated women to a certain extent, right? And I see that in today's world. I see that in business settings. I see that in pay inequality. I see that in the way that women are slut shamed and men are not. I see that in the
Yeah,
way
that's pretty obvious to everyone, the slut
right,
shaming thing.
right.
Yeah.
And I see that in today's modern world, right, where like 75% of women are in the workforce, yet they're still expected to do 100% of the domestic labor, or even emotional labor at home, right? So I'm seeing this big inequality between men and women, and I would love for men to raise their evolution a little bit to almost get to more of the divine feminine or the empathy that I feel like a lot of the male population is
Okay,
lacking.
that's where
Yeah.
I was going. Yes. So that's I was going with
Did I lose you?
divine feminine. Okay. I was
Oh,
I'm
okay.
still
Yeah.
here. Did I cut out on you?
Yeah,
Okay.
the screen just went off for a second, but you're
Yeah,
back.
I was because I was like, okay. I was taking it. That's where I was taking it, and you hit on get divine feminine. Yes, I'm so
Yes.
glad you went there.
Good,
Oh,
good.
okay. So, right, do you have anything to write with? Am I cutting out on you?
Um, can I type it on my screen? I've got my
Yeah, yeah,
computer notes up.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a book called The Sophia Code.
SOFIA?
No, PH,
PH.
SOPH. Yeah,
Sophia code. Awesome.
yeah. Um, wow, there's so many ways I could take this. Okay, so like this is exciting because um yeah, there's a woman that I can connect you with who does Sophia Code circles, if that seems interesting to you. Her circle is already started, so you'd have to wait for the next one to jump in. I think it's going to be this fall or winter,
Okay.
but it's taking the things in that book about divine feminine and bringing it in. And I have a session. Wow. I have a session that I could actually probably share pieces with you if you were interested. It will probably go on my social media channel at some point, but it was a lot talking about divine feminine too. So anyway, so
Okay.
let me just gather my thoughts here. So
Yes.
with
Yeah.
regard to divine feminine, it's because like one of the questions I think her and I started with are why are women so much more open to spiritual things than men? And it's just that whole imbalance of having just a lot more masculine energy. And even women in the workplace, like in high level positions and being in the matrix and working your way up, you have to have more masculine energy than feminine because that's the corporate world. That's what it is, right? And so then you have people that don't do that or can't do that. So like I can't do corporate world anymore. That was just like I can't do it. Like that whole rat race and the politics and oh, that just makes me want to just throw up in my mouth when I think about it, right? I just can't.
I hear
So
you.
then yeah. So
That's
then
why
it's
I'm
like,
here. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So then we look for things and go, okay, I'm not going to participate in that anymore. And then, but the other thing is, it gives us this amazing opportunity to create and use our creative abilities to create other things that maybe don't exist right now. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought of doing this full time, right? And, so we get to use our creative abilities and find our passion because we choose to step outside of that and not participate in that masculine society anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way that things are going. It's just maybe not going as fast as you would like it. And
Mm-hmm.
there's just still a lot of that masculine energy there. So it's just like, I mean, we're not going to change the system in one day, but what can we do to usher in more? And Sophia is the divine feminine energy. So that's the name that was given to the woman who wrote that book when she was literally channeling, and it's incredible to hear the story, but when she was channeling and she was overwhelmed by some energy, and it was amazing how she described it, and it was source, the divine feminine energy of source, calling itself Sophia,
Wow.
right? It's really powerful.
You've got me
And so
interested. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's really incredible. And so wow, is there something you could create that's not even created yet? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, because you're an infinite creator, we all are, that you could create to work on that in that area and create something completely new, a new company, a new business, a new movement with a business, or you know what I mean? That incorporates more. There's other women who are just like, and men who are just like, I don't want to be part of that anymore, right?
Right.
And they have to step out and find something else or do something else. Like, how amazing would it be to have other businesses rise up or movements or companies or jobs or whatever that are all about divine feminine or
Yeah.
not being part of that control
Right. The corporate ladder,
and
the
power.
rigidness, right? Like a true place for like open creativity, which you would think like, wow, any company that's actually like that would grow so quickly and manifest so fast if it's like actually like channeling that kind of energy versus the rigidness and hierarchy control of corporate America.
Right.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, and a company that kind of comes to mind that I think, and I don't know enough about them because I haven't researched them, but everyone knows of Google, right?
Yeah.
Everyone knows of Google, but and how they just, I mean, they dominate now, which is very much a masculine thing. But to grow and be like that, I mean, you would hear stories like as it was, growing up, like all the creativity that their employees were allowed to have and the flexibility and, just like this collaborative nature and everything, and I mean, we see what it is now, and maybe they still have some of that, but it seems to be from the outside looking in more masculine now because it's very much dominant and domineering and like just kind of that energy.
Yeah.
But to have something like that that just could just like you said, just explode because it still maintains that kind of atmosphere or culture. Like that would be revelatory, right?
Right. Yeah, I like that word.
But anyway, so
Um,
you might really like the Sophia Code.
I will definitely I will buy that after this for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there are Sophia like conferences and groups and they call them circles and all kinds of stuff that I don't get into because that's not my calling.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could definitely connect you with that woman who does the Sophia circles that is a client of mine. We do sessions about every month. And
I
so
like it. Okay.
um
Okay.
yeah. So
I'm so glad I
anyway,
brought that up. Or we got
yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like how can you channel that? So it because you don't want to have an anger, because that's a low frequency emotion or rage or whatever. So how can you channel that to not be that low frequency emotion, but to take it to the highest frequency possible, to channel it into a high frequency act or
Right.
energy or whatever to bring about change that you feel is part of your purpose,
Yeah. I want to
right?
bring it to a healthier, more action-based
Yeah.
place than
Yeah.
just sitting there and being so pissed off and then venting about it to my husband. And he's like, I can't hear about this every day, Tiffany. Like, we can't like
Right.
talk. I'm like, damn it, I know. It's not
Well, and
good.
it's just maybe changing perspective a little bit on your part is being like, okay, I came to incarnate in this reality and this is what it is right now. And all these other people have chosen to come and incarnate in this. And that's awesome. Like they all came to experience this imbalance because
Yeah.
the imbalance, if you look at it this way, the imbalance is what's giving the contrast to you to see the imbalance. Because if everything were balanced, there wouldn't be any contrast and it wouldn't spark you to be creative to look for alternatives,
Yeah.
right?
It gives
So,
the opportunity to create.
right,
Yeah.
right. And to help be part of the solution of creating more balance. And so, but if you didn't have the contrast of the imbalance,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't have anything to look for with balance. So it all of the negative gives us an opportunity to be like, wow, I can be the opposite or go on the opposite way or the contrast, right? It's the duality. We live on a planet of duality or
Yeah.
contrast. And so the duality is why we love coming here. So we need to be so thankful for the duality,
Mm-hmm.
right? And look at it as like, wow, you serve an amazing purpose of showing me this side so I can be part of creating this other side. And this is
Yeah.
amazing and it's going to be amazing. Instead of being frustrated or angry that things are the way they are, that's why you chose to be here.
Yeah. While also holding on to the hope that we will get there and it'll keep slowly changing for the
Right.
better of all, right? Like we'll keep evolving.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If it's part of your if it's part of your purpose. So it's just kind of similar to like if someone gets really angry or upset about animal abuse,
Mm-hmm.
but yet that's not their purpose, they're just going to stay in that anger, and it actually serves the opposite of what you would think it would. It actually just pulls down the energy and the emotion. I've been told this by many higher selves under hypnosis. It actually adds more negative energy to the abuse.
Mm.
That's
Okay.
what it does. You're actually feeding that negativity with your anger and your frustration over animal abuse. And so to channel that into a positive way, like if it's your purpose, then absolutely focus on it. But if it's not, we don't focus on it. Not to say we don't ever go and see somebody beating a dog and stop it. That's not what I mean. But
Right.
you know what I mean? To be
You're not
consumed with
actively
something
seeking it out. You're not actively trying to bring it to you all the
to
time
your awareness.
to digest. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or watching videos. I've even had this example from higher selves, watching videos about animal abuse and being like, oh no, like, oh, no, all you're doing is feeding negative energy to those situations and to the animals. And the animals have voiced saying, don't focus on this. Don't look at this and don't focus on it. If it's your purpose to be part of the solution, then yes, then you are part of the higher energy that's offsetting that. But
Wow.
if not, right? You're giving your energy somewhere. Are you giving it to the ones who are helping by going, let me donate, let me be part of this solution? Seeing videos like OK Tacos on TikTok, I watch her videos. She rescues horses. She's amazing. I give
Mhm.
money to her, right? Because she rescues horses and revives them and totally turns them around and like has these incredible, amazing stories. That is where I'm choosing to focus my energy and my finances in helping her versus looking at videos getting angry about animal abuse and the ones who did the abuse on those horses before she got them. You
Yeah.
see? So we can focus on either side.
That's a really good example.
Which one
Yes.
are we giving our energy to?
Right. You're focusing on the positive of look at this beautiful story rather than if there was a story preluding that of like, look at this poor animal. Hopefully someone rescues him. Yeah. Okay.
Right? But that is the job for the person going to the horse auctions and getting the horse. That's her purpose. She goes and finds them. That's not my purpose. I don't even have a pen I could put a horse in or the land. Like that's not
Right.
my purpose, or I would have that space, right?
Yeah.
If it was
Yeah.
my purpose, but it's not. So I it doesn't do me any good to focus on them, all of them sitting in the pens that have been
Okay.
abused. But it is her purpose, so she gets to go do that. And then I get to be part of supporting that positive energy through my attention, my energy, my money's energy, through money energy, through all my energy going to the positive side. So just look at it like there's a scale. Which side are you giving your energy to, whether it be financial or time or thoughts?
Yeah.
Anger, emotions, anything. Which side are you putting more weight on the scale? Are you putting it on the negative side or the positive side? And
Yeah.
so maybe just looking at it like that and shifting it to what can I do to not be feeding the negative side and putting more energy into the disparity and the down inequality, because you're feeding that more energy when you do that.
Right.
Your anger
Right.
is feeding that energy instead of feeding it to the other way and looking for creative things like, wow, I could do this, or I could start a company. I could just
Yeah.
start by myself as an entrepreneur someday. What does that look like? You have a year to think about it,
hmm
right? If you want to
That's
take a year off.
that's so helpful. That's such a great like way to it's so obvious, but it's not obvious to change your perspective like that. Yeah, thank you for that. That's very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. And it really is. It's just all perspective, and so much of what I do and learn from higher selves is perspective, and how literally everything, because we live on a planet of duality, everything is choice. We
hmm
choose to feed this or we choose to feed that. We choose to be positive. We choose to add to the negative. We choose love or we choose hate. We choose happiness or we choose anger. But everything is a choice. And that's why souls are lined up in waiting, holding pens, so to speak, in the spirit realm, waiting to be able to come and incarnate on this planet. They love the duality that we have down here
Yeah.
because you don't have
How
that on every planet.
do you have any idea like how many lifetimes a person like is there an average amount of lifetimes that people accomplish here? I feel like I've been around too long. Like I'm tired. I don't want to incarnate again. Like I don't know if that's a
Okay,
common thing.
we ask that. Yeah, you can absolutely ask that. I've had people ask that, and of course, it's an individual question.
Yeah.
So, some people I've met, it was their very first life. That's not that many that I come across that it's their first life, but some I do. Um, one guy I specifically remember his session. We were looking at his fourth life. So we looked at all three of his other lives and got a lot of detail about them. And
hmm
then this is his fourth life. And so, yeah, it's fun. And others, I'm like, okay, on a scale of, let's say we have a timeline and a brand new soul is on the left. Remember those math timelines when we were in school, looking at the little lines, not even a timeline, like a number line. But on the left is a brand new soul, and on the right is like, let's say someone at the same level of the soul of Jesus, right?
hmm
Where does she fall on that timeline as
Mm.
far as how old? how long she's been around, a spark off of creator, like how long you've been wandering around and experiencing realities everywhere. But if you want to specifically ask, which people do, how many lives have you had on earth? And what would it take for you to no longer have to incarnate on earth and experience duality? Do you want to ask that?
Yeah, I want to ask that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you overcome duality, I've been told that once you no longer need duality to be your teacher, you don't incarnate on earth anymore.
Okay.
Unless you want to come back specifically for a higher purpose, like Jesus' soul did, to do something on a much higher level to help humanity,
Okay.
right? But as far as being stuck on the karmic wheel type of thing, that once you overcome the need for duality to be your teacher, you no longer need it,
Okay. Okay.
right?
Am I
So
able
if you
to
get
ask
out
that
of,
question? Am I able to ask that question regarding my husband as well? Like where he's at? Or should I just keep it about myself? Is that better for,
we can,
might as well ask it, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
sure. And if they can't tell you, they'll tell you they can't tell you,
Yeah. Okay.
right? Okay, so um has she incarnated on earth for many lives? And what would it take? What would she have to learn or do or master in order for her to no longer need to incarnate on earth? Um, and like my team has specifically told me, this is my last life here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Right.
Yay.
Right. And then I had one woman recently. This is her second to last life.
Okay.
She has one more to go. Like that's the like we map out like our soul path, like up in the spirit, like we map it out like with our team, what we're gonna do and where we're gonna go and what we want to experience. And according to her map, she has one more that she wants to incarnate here.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome to know. Yeah.
Yeah. So and then about your husband. Um
I could just
and
say
what
for I think the truth behind the question is like, are him and I gonna stay with each other after this? Like I feel like we're soul bonded. I mean, we have a marriage contract, right? I feel like there's a
right?
soul contract, right? Like what is
Okay, so let's ask that then. Do her and her husband incarnate frequently with one another? And based on their soul plans, do they plan to have more incarnations together after this life, whether on Earth or someplace else? You like that one?
I like that. I like that.
Um, And so really it's a lot of times it's not always, but sometimes it's just like we incarnate with people. Let's just say you and your mom have had 5 lives together so far, or 10 or 15 or whatever it is, right? And we incarnate with people until it's like, yeah, I've pretty much learned all the lessons I can get from incarnating with you now. And then you just move on and there's no like attachment feelings in the spirit or, whatever, anything like that. And a lot of times we come down in our lives down here and we end the incarnation cycle or circle, the karmic cycle with those souls on earth.
Okay.
So like a lot of times when divorce happens, and it'll be like, okay, that's we ended it down there type of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So
That's
not all
interesting.
the time, but it's different for everyone. But I've seen
Yeah.
sessions where that has been the case, where they've done that, ended it in divorce because it's like, okay, we're done.
Okay.
No hard feelings, like we're done. Okay, next,
There
right?
is there is one more, well, it's just coming to me now. Um, but like my husband and I have communication issues, and I guess
Mhm.
like if there's any, I'm very overly communicative. He can be very like avoidant, not really knowing how to communicate it as well, which we're trying to work on as a couple. Like if there's any advice my higher self has, I would love to ask that as well.
So what kind of things does he avoid though?
Um, so like There's just been so many like little things where, so I mean, I've got ADHD, he's got ADHD as well. We've got different forms of ADHD almost, where I could say something to him like, "Hey Greg, like please can you like not forget to do this in the bathroom because I keep tripping over your stuff every time I use the bathroom. Like it's really bothersome to me." This is just a small example,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And he'll be like, "Yeah, I'll do it. Like it's fine." And then like we'll have the same conversation like two or three times every week and his excuse is always like, "Well, I just forgot. Like I wasn't thinking about it." Like blah blah blah, like I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I don't know why I keep doing these things or keep forgetting these things. Like I don't want to do those things. And it's like we keep we are so confused sometimes why certain things don't get through to one another because I
Mm.
feel like I'm a very descriptive person. I'm like this, here, how, when, like I give everything and he like doesn't hear it and it just causes a lot of like little arguments in our day-to-day life. Or like I'll ask him a question, I'll be like, "Hey, how was your meeting with Jeff?" And he'll be like, "It was okay, but kind of weird to be honest." And I'll be like, "Oh, why was it weird?" And he's like, I don't know. He's funny." And I'm like, "Okay, well what does that mean though?" Like it's just like a lot of our daily conversations. It's like I'm constantly just trying to get information out of
Full
him
information.
and he doesn't openly just give, he's not a descriptive person. So I'm like, we're both confused because then later on he'll be like, "Oh, well, I just assumed that you knew it was X, Y, and Z." I'm like, "How would I know that?" I'm like, "You didn't tell me that. Like you didn't actually say the words." He's like, "Well, I just thought you'd know." So it's just like little things that
Mm.
drive me absolutely insane because like I crave directness. I'm a very direct person. So
Mm.
it's hard for me to not have that in our marriage because it's just like a bunch of little things that build up and then resentment happens. And I'm like, this is so unnecessary.
Right. So, let's ask first this question. And if the answer is no from your higher self, you don't need this. The answer is no.
Okay.
But would it benefit her to have you balance her masculine and feminine
Hmm.
energies? And if yes, can you do that for her now and tell us what that looks like as you do it? And then how about this? What are some things she can do to keep her masculine and feminine energies balanced?
I love that you took it there because it it makes so much sense and it's something I think about because like especially being in the corporate world that I have been for so long, like absolutely I've had to harvest as much of my masculine energy as I can. And I do feel like it
Yeah.
gets in the way of my relationship with my husband sometimes. But then I'm
Yeah.
also like, well, what does it really mean though? Like, I don't want to change who I am. I'm still always going to be a direct person. But maybe I could just find a way to just care less or focus less on certain things and just be like, whatever, like
Right.
leave more control up to him
Right.
and not carry as much. That would be great.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is too. It's more, here's another perspective. Okay. So it's more, and this is what I have had to learn too, because I was very much, and my natural inclination is to be very blunt and
Hmm.
very straightforward. Like that's my natural inclination. And with all the healing and everything that I've done and the work that I'm now doing, it's more of, I feel like I'm a lot softer around the edges. So, like, at least now I'll say, can I just say something that might be a little bit blunt? Like, I'll ask first instead of just being blunt, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It
Right. So,
prepares the person. Yeah.
yeah, so I've kind of learned to soften it a little bit, and I try to be softer because that's not my true nature. Because I'll never forget my first real job out of college when this one guy was just hurt and devastated when he just said, she's just so crass.
Oh,
And I was
really?
just like crass and blunt. And I was just like, what's wrong with that? You know what I mean? And it was
Yeah.
just like, I like everybody to be blunt and just get to the point instead of. And so then, of course, my second husband that I married was very much, oh, let's coat everything with sugar and candy and lollipops. And I would just be
That's
like,
how
oh my
my
God,
husband kind of is.
it would drive me crazy,
Yeah,
right? Because I'm like, oh my gosh, can you just get to the point? You don't
right.
need to sugarcoat my feelings before you tell me something. Just tell me,
Yeah,
like it would
yeah,
drive me crazy, right?
yeah.
But that was why it was good. The contrast, you see the duality, right?
Right.
But it's realizing that everyone, and it's hard, it's a little bit more difficult when you're in a marriage with someone, but with everyone, it's really realizing that everyone has their own journey and their own path and their own soul lessons,
Mm-hmm.
and just totally being okay with that
Yeah.
and being like, oh, that's where he is, and that's where they're at, and it's okay, and I'm just going to focus on me. So this, had a higher self say it, I love it beautifully. Turn your ears and your eyes inside out. Instead of looking at other people and what they're doing or how they're acting or how they're responding or how they're treating you or whatever, like just flip them inside out and look at me. Like, why does that trigger me?
Yeah.
When, what is
I'm
it?
writing that down.
Yeah, what is it in me that's being triggered? What is it in me that needs to be healed that would trigger me? What is in me that needs to be healed that it triggers me so bad that he won't go into detail about his day? Why does that trigger me?
Right.
Right? Because it's not a him issue, right?
Yeah.
It's a me, it's a you, right? It's an
That's
us
hard to
issue.
accept for me though.
Ah, right. So this is where the growth is, though. And if you
Yeah,
want to get off this planet, I'm telling you right now, you got to learn this.
I
Like you got to
know.
master this, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the contrast and the duality that's getting you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to get off until you overcome duality.
I'm just so stubborn. I just like want things to be a certain way all the time. I'm like, but this is the better way for everyone. Let's
Control.
make it this way.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's control. That's
I know.
masculine, right? That's masculine energy, right? So just think of turning your ears and your eyes inside out. And like I do that all the time, all the time. I don't have to do it as much as I used to do because things just don't trigger me. Like very, very infrequently do things trigger me now because I did the hard work. And every time something did trigger me, I would immediately, within minutes, be like, okay, why did it trigger me so bad when those people were sitting on the soccer field talking about that topic when I was trying to enjoy the game? And it just grated on me and angered me to the point where I literally wanted to get up and yell at them.
Yeah.
Why did that trigger me so badly? What is it in me? And it was a whole thing about control, that I couldn't control the fact that I was upset that they were having a conversation about something that was so divisive. So they were
Okay.
sitting there talking about, well, they're not vaccinated, so they can't come to our party and they can't come to our family reunion, and talking about, well, I thought he would have gotten the vaccine and I thought she would have gotten it, and blah, 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 blah. And they were just divisive, 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 divisive. And here I'm like trying to live above duality and divisiveness because I don't like that grading of
Yeah.
division, right? I don't like it. The last
Yeah.
election got me over that, right? And I don't like being in that energy of divisiveness. I want
Hmm.
the energy of unity and oneness.
Yeah.
I don't care what you think. I don't care who you support. I don't care. If you want to play in that, awesome. That's where you're at.
Hmm.
I'm not
That's where
there.
you're at.
Not
Yeah.
that I'm better, but I'm not there. I'm not into playing in that sandbox of divisiveness anymore. I took my toys and I left that sandbox, right? I'm
Hmm.
not playing in there. But then I was forced to listen to it when I was sitting there because I had this great seat in the entire sideline. Like there was no other space for me to go. And it was my son's soccer tournament. And I was like, I can't go anywhere else. Like I'm stuck literally listening to these people just
Yeah.
divisive, 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 right? And it
Yeah.
just, that whole energy was just like just hard for me. So I went to my car and I was like, after I put my earbuds on and I just raged to Metallica, you know what I mean, to match my mood, right? And so I wouldn't have to hear them, but I went to my car and I was just like, what is it in me that needs to be healed? That triggered, angered me so bad that I was so close to
Mhm.
getting up and saying something to them, right? Right. And so my higher self was like, it's the whole thing of you couldn't control that. You're trying to be above it, but you're not going to get rid of it outside of you. You're not going to eliminate
Mhm.
other people who are playing in that sandbox. You can't drag them out of that sandbox by their hair and make them leave.
Yeah.
They're choosing to play in that, and you need to be okay with that and accept
Mhm.
that and not let it bother you because you cannot control others or where they're at in their journey. You can't control that. You only can control your reaction to it and just being understanding and loving of like, oh, that's where they're at. I'm
Yeah.
just going
Yeah.
to remove myself so I don't have to be around that energy. And
Right.
I mean, I could have probably found another space, maybe not with as great a view or whatever, or, gone to the far end of the field or whatever and had a really crappy view. But it was my choice to stay in that spot, right? I
Mhm.
literally could have removed myself because me yelling at them won't change them and it's not helping their journey. And it would put me in a really negative energy too, because then I'd be like in rage, right? Because
Yeah.
they'd probably come back and go, who do you think you are? It'd just be like negative, right?
Yeah, it'd be bad.
It'd be bad. So that was an instance of turning my ears and my eyes inside out and going, what is it in me that needs to be healed?
Yeah.
Just rising above it and understanding that you're not here to change anyone else. The
Mhm.
only one you can focus on is you and how you act and react to everything,
Yeah. Okay.
right?
I like that.
There's a new perspective, right?
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. It's something I need to almost tattoo on my arm, probably. Something of the sort, right? To like
Well, it's
constantly remind
always
myself.
here's your tattoo. Lead with love.
Lead with love.
Right?
Yeah.
You always want to lead with love in everything, and love would never be divisive or condemning or judgmental. It's just like we're all one, we're all inclusive, and it's just different facets of the same diamond.
Hmm.
And not all of them look identical, and we wouldn't want them to because we wouldn't be a planet of duality then.
Yeah.
And then all but one of us would be irrelevant if we were all the same,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So we want that diversity, we want that contrast
Mhm.
because it helps me learn, because that contrast of them playing in that sandbox helped me to get healing. So it's
Yeah.
like, wow. So here's another one. Love the lesson, forgive the teacher. So your
Mm.
husband is your teacher. So you can love the lesson and forgive the teacher.
Okay.
And that's with any situation. So this contrast of inequality is your teacher that you're
Yeah.
seeing around you. So love the lesson, forgive the teacher, have grace for the fact that you're surrounded by it and be like, okay, I don't have to let it bother me. Like, really, why is it bothering me? What is it in me that needs to be healed that triggers me so much?
Yeah.
Right. But so love that, love the lesson and forgive the teacher.
Hmm.
Right. Anyway, there's my spiel.
Like it. No, it's
So,
really helpful. No.
what are some things she can do to keep her masculine and feminine energies balanced?
Yes.
Okay. And so we were talking about communication. So, what advice can you give her about how to have more loving, accepting communication exchanges with her husband? Um, but I just keep hearing control, 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 right? Because
Mm.
it's wanting to control how he responds to you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it is. I haven't wanted to like admit that it's control, but that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, since you're a blunt person, you can take my bluntness. Because don't we love it when someone else is blunt?
It's so
Like,
nice. It's refreshing.
thank you. That was the word I was going to use. It's refreshing. It's refreshing.
Mhm.
So I love channeling so some people in their sessions, we will channel the law of truth sometimes. Instead of talking to your higher self, we'll ask for the law of truth to give a word or say something. And I love the law of truth because it is blunt
Yeah,
and straight to the point, and there is no sugarcoating it because it's just truth.
I love it.
It's no, like I am like infatuated in love with the law of truth. Like I love the law of truth because of that, because that's, like I said, that's my true nature. It was like direct and to the point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we might be tapping into some law of truth today.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, so let's, uh, I can do this if you want. For these next few questions, could we also hear from the law of truth from that perspective? And then it would be balancing masculine and feminine energies.
Hmm.
What can you do to balance masculine and feminine, and the advice about you and your husband communicating? Should we do that?
I like it. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
try it. Let's do it.
See what that's like. I have a video on my YouTube channel, and I don't remember which one it is, but we did channel the law of truth. So that was super fun. Um, okay, what else? What else do we got?
In terms of questions that I had,
Yeah, or
um,
life, what's going on, things like, oh, we want to talk about career because we didn't go there, or like what you're gonna do next, like ideas, right?
yeah, I think,
So
and we can keep that kind of vague because I feel
yeah,
like whatever's
yeah,
coming is going to come.
yeah.
Um,
Okay,
but
so she's leaving her current. I'm sorry, go ahead.
ooh, actually, this would be something I'm more curious about right now. In terms of generating more passive income, is
Okay.
there an idea or a category that I should spend more of my energy on if I can? Because there's some different things my husband and I have been looking into, like some rental properties, and also just like some online stuff, like e-commerce type of stuff that my husband started. I'm like, if there's one thing I could dive into, what could that be while I have all this time? Um, you
Ah.
know, I think that would be even more important to me in the immediate.
What things can she do? Can her and her husband do? Can her and her husband do to generate more passive income that she could spend some time working on while she's taking some time off of work? Is that
Hmm.
good?
Yeah.
But the other thing I was thinking of, and tell me if you like this, if you don't, it's your session.
Yeah.
So I was working on the question, so I didn't quite finish it, but she's leaving her current company and wants to take off work and then do something that um, can bring her fulfillment and make a change, make a positive impact on the planet.
Yes.
What kind, what advice can you give her? What advice or direction and or direction can you give her in this regard? How about that?
I like that.
Super, super open.
Yeah. Yeah. You frame questions really nicely. I can tell you're
Ah,
very used to this.
yes. Well, that's why I keep going back and like changing things when I say it, because always set the intention before I do this that it's my team working through me. And so
Mhm.
I'll start writing something like I did. What things can she? Oh, nope, nope. It's her and her husband. Like I'm constantly hearing in my mind, like, oh, let's change this. Let's make it this and let's word it this way. So I'd like to take all the credit, but I can't.
Yeah,
It's my
even I
team.
noticed when you said that, like you'll say little things and I'll notice the deliberateness in it. And I'm like, oh, I like that she said and her husband because when you said that, I got a feeling that was like really like, yes, yeah. I didn't think of it
Yeah.
that way, but yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Because I'm hearing it from them. So yeah, they're awesome. You know what was really cool last night? I had it's how when you sleep sometimes and it's like you feel like you're kind of like waking up a lot, but but you aren't, and you're kind of like really aware of what's going on when you're sleeping at certain points when you're sleeping.
Like
Um,
every night.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
last night I had one of those where I was like, it wasn't like I was off in dreamland. I was, but then I felt like I kind of kept coming back and I was like more aware. And I just remember many times throughout the night last night, just telling my spirit team how incredibly much I love them.
That's so nice.
Right? And I
Yeah.
woke up going, I think I told my team, like, I don't even know how many times when I was sleeping last night, how amazing they are and how much I love them.
Aw, that's so sweet.
So that was fun to wake up to that.
Yeah, that is really nice.
um,
I'm sure they appreciate it.
yeah, hopefully. Our team loves it when we talk to them. They tell us that we don't talk to them enough. They like literally are on pins and needles wanting us to talk to them all the time, all capital, underline, bold, all the time about
That's one
everything.
thing, like, maybe that's something that we can ask as well. Like, when it comes to my spirit guides, like, I would say sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I'm really like in touch with them or not. And other times things just pop into my mind and I'm like, whoa. Sometimes I like wonder a question in my head and the thought comes so instantly. I'm like, oh my God, was that me? Or was like that something more divine? Like, I don't know. Like, so I don't know if there's any, like, one of the questions I did just have is like, do my spirit guides have any messages for me?
Right.
Um, but
Okay.
like, yeah, if there's any messages that I should be aware of, or like, how can I feel like I'm communicating more clearly with them, I guess, would be great. I'm sure that's very common.
Yep. And okay, so here's a question. Have her guides or her team or anyone on her team or anyone on her team been trying to communicate anything to her recently
Hmm.
that she maybe has not heard? And if yes, what would that be? And then what can she do to have more clear and consistent communication with her team and be more in tune with her intuitive voice? How about that?
I like that.
Hit save after
Um,
every one so I don't lose anything here. Here we go. Okay.
and then one important thing for me too is my physical body. So maybe like a couple questions around this,
Yeah.
but since the pandemic, I put on like 35 pounds. And again, I'm not like a very heavy person by any means, but I feel uncomfortable in my own skin, and I feel like it's been so hard for me to even lose a pound. Just just a couple of pounds would be great, and I don't know why that is or if there's like a deeper physical thing that might be going on. I've had like blood tests in the past that looked like they were fine. Um, but a day does not go by where I am not fatigued and struggling to just do basic everyday tasks.
Okay. So your job is really stressful?
It is, but I haven't worked it in 3 months. I'm feeling a lot better since then. I think I slept a lot since then. I caught up on sleep. But even still, if I'm like waking up and I don't have like an immediate thing I have to do,
Mm.
like it ebbs and flows. But like sometimes, like even like this morning, I took that bath and it got me in the sleepy mood. But after that, I was like getting into my computer. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sleepy and fatigued right now. I hope I can like be good for today. Or like there'll be other days where I'm like, oh my God, okay, all I need to do is just like clean the dishes and then I'll be
Okay,
whatever.
so I'm trying to get to the root of this though. So, but prior to this, was it like a lot of stress, constant stress?
Yes.
Okay, so this is where we're going to go with this. I deal with this in a lot of sessions, so
Okay.
I kind of know where we're going to take it. So let me find the list of questions that I sent you because I'm actually just going to copy and paste it off there.
Can I
Um,
use the restroom? I'll be
yeah,
back.
why don't we do that? Why don't we take like a 5-minute break?
Okay,
Okay.
perfect. Okay.
Okay, we're back from a break. I was pulling up this question. Um, Is this person's vagus nerve operating at optimal performance and in perfect health, or could it use an adjustment by you? If needing an adjustment, how will it change this person's life to have this nerve operating optimally? And then there's another one about limbic system. If this person, okay, she suffers from fatigue, does it have anything to do with her limbic system that causes her to be in fight or flight mode too much, or is there a different cause? Can you heal it by its root and teach her body how to have an abundance of energy and to know what that feels like?
That would be wonderful.
Let me do that.
I haven't an abundance of energy. I don't know what that feels like without medication.
Oh, okay. And then we're going to address your adrenals too. Um, could her adrenal glands use a healing or upgrade? And if yes, can you do that for her now and tell us what that looks like as you do it? And then, does her body release, has her body, has her body um been releasing, has her body released too much cortisol on an ongoing basis in situations where she was not truly in life-threatening situations?
Mm-hmm.
And if yes, has that caused any physical harm to her body that you could repair slash restore for her now? And then I'm going to put the adrenal ones after that.
Okay.
Um, I try to build up to the things. So we'll do the adrenal glands, and then now that she is not in that stressful job anymore, is her body still producing too much cortisol? If it was, right? Too much
Mm-hmm.
cortisol. Like, is it in the habit of doing that? If yes, can you install implant in her a cortisol regulator that will only allow cortisol to be released into her body when there is truly a life-threatening situation, and tell us what that looks like as you do it. I had that done the other day to this woman. Oh my God, her session was so good. Like she had just like made, so this is like psychic surgery right here. She had like major. I'm like, yeah, usually I tell people it's like, yeah, it's almost like when you're done, you want to recover, like lots of water, lots of rest, things like that, just like you would if you had just like a little outpatient surgery, for the next few days, or like, just rest for the next few days. I'm like, yeah, you just had full blown surgery. You didn't have outpatient surgery. Like
Wow.
she got
Okay.
so many things done. It was amazing. It was
That's
so
awesome.
amazing. So let me pull this. And then limbic system. Let me get that one and copy that one over.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah,
I'll
because it
say
just feels like it's
the
like,
vagus nerve. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, it just feels like over the years, like, I mean, motivation, it's weird because, like, you look at my career, I've been a very high functioning, strong, amazing employee at this company. I've done great things. So I'm like high functioning, but then
Right.
I'm also very unmotivated at the same time. It's like,
And what do you mean by unmotivated? How?
well, specific to work, I was just very unmotivated to even like get ready and join my Zoom calls for the day because I think that was just part of me being over the job and being like, I'm
Okay.
separating myself. This isn't for me anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm just very much so in my own head. So like I'll wake up and I'll be like, okay, I said I was going to go to the gym this morning. I got to run these errands. I really need to go get my new driver's license. And it's like sometimes like I just can't. I'm like, why is it so hard for me just to make it happen? Because what happens is I sit there and I kind of think in my head, I'm like, does it really even matter if I do that thing? I could do that tomorrow anyway. Do I even really care that much? It's kind of like this like melancholiness, whatever. Adderall, which I've been on since as a teenager. I'm not taking it right now or this week, but I'll take it when I really have to do something. Adderall and this vitamin called SAM-E that I started taking for a little bit, they both almost like get rid of the hesitancy that exists in me to just do those things. Just be like, and almost come at it with more of like an excited, positive attitude of like, oh yeah, I forgot. I gotta go do this thing. Get in the car and go do it. But it's almost like if I don't have like those supplemental things to help me or like help make me do it, then I'll just sit there and think about it a little bit and be like, ah, like what's the point of doing that today? And I don't want to live like that. I want to be active. Um, more often than not, outside of just working out, right? I want to feel more active and have more movement in my life, which has slowly been happening more and more since I quit this job, but it's still a struggle. Oh, maybe if we have the time in there, we can ask like, are there any foods or supplements that I should be also trying to take advantage of to help, or foods to avoid, or, you know?
So, okay, so here's the last question.
Mhm.
Sometimes she takes a medication called Adderall and a supplement called SAM-E that helps motivate her and give her more energy and excitement in her life. How can she get the same effect, or maybe okay, what needs, what needs, what needs, can you scan her body now and tell us what needs to be healed or balanced in her body to give her the same effect that these drugs do? And can you do that now and tell us what that looks like?
Okay. I love that.
Um, and then where did we go? What were you saying?
Oh, and then are there any other food or
Oh, foods or
supplements
supplements. Okay.
that would help me?
What are the best foods to eat for her body and foods she should avoid?
Hmm.
And are there any vitamins or supplements she could be taking in order to, oh, I'll tell you this quick story in just a minute.
Yeah.
She should be taking to in order to, or taking for her best health, for her best health. So yeah, I had this one session recently, and it's some like mineral or herb or something that's not even found on planet Earth that would like just be amazing for her body. So her higher self gave her that in the session.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, whoa, never had that happen before.
So from that session, can her higher self keep installing that in her if
I know
she,
I took it somewhere like that. I just don't
yeah,
remember exactly what it was that happened, but
okay.
yeah. And I think her higher self said that something, if I remember correctly, like something about she's going to be able to get it continuing from the sun or something like that,
Mhm.
but that it'll be activated by the sun or something like that. So, how about if we say, are there any vitamins or supplements from the earthly or non earthly realm that would benefit her physical health? And if yes, what would that be? What would that be? And then from there, I'll say, if it's non earthly, of course, I'll ask if, can we get that for you, like a lifetime supply or something, right?
Yeah.
Maybe put a little capsule in you and it just slowly releases it over time, as your
Yeah,
body needs it or
an
whatever.
extended release pill or whatever
Right,
they
right,
call
right,
those.
right. Um, okay. Do you want to ask if you consider Earth to be your home or not?
That would be a great question. That's something I've asked myself over the years. There's a lot of planets that are like Earth physically, right?
There's some, yeah. There's some that
So,
are 3D. Yeah. A lot of them are not 3D, but there's some that are. It's just because we're dense, right? We haven't
yeah.
evolved yet to not needing physical bodies, but there are some, and there are some that are lower than ours. Oh my gosh, I had this one guy, this was a few years ago. He went to a planet that was like way denser than Earth. Oh my gosh. Like he wasn't there like he didn't last very long. Like he was killed because there was
Mhm.
just so much violence and murder and rape and like it was horrible. It was a horrible place.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, why did he go there? Like, why did he want to go there? Just to experience it. I'm like,
It
right?
sounds horrible. Yeah.
Right? It was
I don't want to be
horrible.
any denser than this. This is very heavy. This is so
Right?
heavy.
Oh, what can you tell her about that other planet? Actually, and what can you tell her about that other planet? And what is her favorite planet?
Do you know where you're going after this incarnation?
I know that I'm being my soul team has told me that I'm going through all kinds of experiences and trainings, and I'm going to get more um, training next
Mhm.
for being part of the group consciousness of the law of truth. That's
Oh,
where I want to go,
your favorite. Yes.
right? And so that's why it's like the law of truth kept coming up. And there's like a consciousness, it's like a group consciousness, which is the law of truth, but it takes tons and tons and tons of training and mentoring to be part of that group consciousness of the law of truth. but
Okay.
but that's where my soul is like, yep, that's where I'm going, that's what I want. So like
Awesome.
that's super exciting to think about. Like it's so
Yeah.
exciting to think about. Yeah, too bad my conscious mind won't know any of that, like, right? But yeah, to think about it is pretty fun.
That's
Okay,
amazing.
anything else that you can think of? We're like we got a lot of questions here, but we might have room for one or two more.
I'm just looking at my sheet that I wrote stuff down on. Okay, so we talked about, well, we kind of already talked. I feel like one of the questions you asked was like, are there any lessons that I need to learn to let some things go? I think that will be covered if they're throughout all the different types of questions about my life that we're asking. I feel like if there are lessons I need to learn, it will come out.
Yeah.
Um, and then we talked about if there are any other messages from my spirit guides, how to talk to or how to feel in communication with my spirit guides. Um, we talked about, I forgot how you worded it, but like how many incarnations I've had, how many I have left, or like any indicator of where I am on the
Yeah, yeah.
scale of things. Um,
What about this one? Would it benefit this person to tune into the energy of their desired future in order to help them achieve that which they desire? And if yes, what does it look like for them to tune into the energy of their desired future? Or
I
no?
like that. No, 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 I do like that because I found success when I just focus on the feeling of something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then,
So this would be tuning into the energy of it.
yeah, because then the rest can kind of pave the way. It paves itself almost if you just keep focusing on the energy of it. Um,
I'm going
I
to
do
put
like that.
that up here by the leaving your current company.
Yeah. Organize it however. I trust your organization and of things. Yeah.
Yeah, I put it up there. Okay. Because those kind of go together. And what I do a lot of times is I'm just skimming down the list of questions that I have on my list, and any that just kind of pop out at me,
Hmm.
that's I'll ask you, hey, do you want this one? So I'm just skimming down that list right now to see if any others pop out at me.
Um, I'll say one more when you're done looking at that.
Do you want to see if any of your chakras could use a balancing?
Yes. Yeah. I think that goes
That,
in line with.
I thought of that one later, I mean earlier, and I kind of forgot about it, but now it's coming back again. So which of this person's chakras are most off balance? And what are you able to do now to balance them? And what can she do to keep them balanced? Can you tell us how balancing them will impact her life going forward? Okay, what was the question you were thinking of?
It was more like blood family focus, but I guess the broad question is there anything else I could be doing to help my family, aka my parents or my sister, um, in their journeys here with me? Like, is there anything else that I can be doing? Part of the question, question comes from like, is there anything more I should be doing to try harder to develop deeper relationships with my parents? Um, I don't know if that would go anywhere though. I'm kind of like I'm an older sister to my little sister, of course, but I'm like kind of like a parent to her as well. So I feel like I'm guiding her as much as I can, and she's not in the best place all the time, but she's kind of getting through it. So I guess like probably even more so than the focus on like my parents, like is there more I can be doing to help her in her
Mm.
evolution? Because I have a feeling sometimes that's pulling away a little bit and making her do her own thing and make her own decisions. And some of that is like just being an ear for her. But she has a lot of like the anxiety issues that I have, even worse to some degree. Um, she has like a big lack of confidence that I'm really trying to help open her eyes to grow a little bit more. So I'm like, I don't know.
Oh, my kids took my water bottle.
Oh, I thought that was a dog. Oh, it is a dog. It's
Yeah,
a hi.
I know. They're walking by our house. How dare they? How dare they? I know. That's so rude of them. I
Mhm.
know. Thank you for letting me know. I think we're safe, okay? What can she do to be the best big sister and help her younger sister with the challenges that she faces? How about
Yeah,
that? It's pretty open-ended.
I think leave it open-ended. And honestly, if you think we have enough, I think that's really all that I
Yeah,
can
I think
think
we're
of.
good. Yeah, yeah, I think we're good.
Stuff will come
Um,
out. So,
if we have room for any more, I can always go look on my list here. Give me one second. Let me see if any others jump out at me, but
Okay.
the whole thing about having anxiety and like you were talking about your sister, it's that whole thing again. If we literally could learn to just turn our ears and our eyes inside out, like
Hmm.
none of this stuff out here would even stress us out or bother us, right? Because we can't
Yeah.
change unless it's part of our purpose or whatever. Like we can't change anyone else. There's
Hmm.
only two times you can change anyone else. This goes for husbands and stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Because that comes from me learning that from beating my head against a wall with my second husband, right? So they got nowhere. The only times we can ever change anyone is by being an example. And if
Hmm.
they're wanting to make the change in themselves by them seeing our example and making the change themselves. Like,
Yeah.
or a friend might be like, oh my gosh, like you've got so much peace lately. Like, what are you doing? Right. And that leads to the second one is if someone asks you,
Hmm.
what can I do to be more like you? So the woman that introduced me to the first spiritual book I ever read, because I was like, Christian, you're going to hell if you don't have Jesus in your heart, right? I was
Yeah.
that way. Um, Not that I don't think Jesus is amazing. Obviously, he's actually one of my the ascended as an ascended master that helps me a lot in my journey and has helped me with my healing. But um, but she introduced me to that, and what happened was she walked by my desk one day when I was working at a real estate company, and I said, "What can I read to be more like you? To
Hmm.
know more of what you know?" Because she just exuded peace and confidence and spirituality and light and love, and I was just like, I want what she's got, right? So I
Yeah.
asked her, what can I read to know more of what you know? And she told me. So that's when somebody comes to you and asks, right?
Hmm.
Otherwise, we can't control them. And we shouldn't be trying to control anyone else's journey or how they do their journey because they learn through stumbling. It's like the little kid, they learn by falling down.
Yeah.
They learn how to keep their balance by falling down. And it's like, well, but I don't want my kid to fall down. Let him fall down.
Yeah.
Right? He needs to learn how to fall down because that's training him how to keep his balance. And
Hmm.
if you take that experience of falling down away from him, it's going to be harder for him to learn how to keep his balance,
Right. Right.
right? Because then you're constantly holding him and helping him, and he's not learning his balance on his own when you're constantly holding his hands,
Yeah.
right? So with sister, it can be hard too, or
Hmm.
spouse, or anyone that we care about, it can be hard too. But it's like just watching them stumble, but being okay with it
Hmm.
and knowing that we don't have to control, and we shouldn't control anyone else's journey because then you can also create karma and karma keeps you coming back. So we don't ever want to try to control anyone else's journey. We can guide them and help them and love them, but always leading with love, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I need to work on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
But and you see people who are like they're alcoholics or drug addicts or whatever, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, and you try to pull them out and you try to pull them out, but we all know they're not going to get over it until they're ready.
Right.
Right? It doesn't matter what we do. We can force them into rehab and they come out and they get drunk again or they go on drugs again because
Right.
until they're ready inside to make the change, they're not going to do it no matter what we try to do to control them because
Hmm.
it's their journey, their soul. They have not learned everything they wanted to learn from that addiction. Addiction is their teacher.
Yeah.
And as soon as we realize that everything, anxiety is a teacher, fear is a teacher, addiction is a teacher. And until we let people have their experience with their teacher, like they're not going to get over it no matter what we say or what we do. They have to be
Right.
ready, right?
Yeah. Then you're just pulling them out of class too early,
You're pulling them out of class too early and then they
which won't be successful anyway. So, you're
yeah.
wasting your energy kind of just be there in a loving way to support,
Right.
but like you can't
Exactly.
push or pull.
Yeah. And the most important things that most valuable things we have are our time and our energy. How are we spending our most valuable thing? Are you spending it on turning your ears and your eyes inside out and giving it to yourself and your journey and your peace? or are
Mhm.
you trying to give it to other people who aren't going to use it anyway, and now you don't have that for yourself?
Yeah.
Number one, you're distracting yourself from yourself by trying to fix everything around you or everyone around you, but then you don't have the energy left at the end of the day for yourself and to focus on you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I everything that you just said in the past two sentences resonates with me, but almost like in a weird way, because as you're saying it, I'm thinking about it's almost going back to that shame thing where I'm taking this time for myself away from work to really focus on me and fix and try to fix what needs to be fixed so I can like change my perspective. But then there's also like that little programming or that voice. It's like, well, you should feel or like you should be a little ashamed or guilty that you're just focusing so much on yourself. Like you could be helping other people. Like society says that you should be raising kids right now and be focused on them, right? But I'm taking all this time just for me. And I know it's the right decision, but for some reason it feels a little
mm,
like, am I selfish? I don't think so because I feel like this is something I need to do. It goes back to that question we were asking earlier about like
yeah, yeah,
guilt.
program.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a really great way to get over that is, and this is from higher self saying this too, is we're supposed to constantly be talking out loud to ourselves.
Okay.
So when you hear that voice, so it's whichever voice is stronger. So, and this will lead to our
Writing that
second,
down too.
or and this will lead to our second part. So imagine this is your the voice inside you that's always talking to you, like this pen that I'm holding up, it's the voice inside you. But for this session, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be splitting it down the middle. We're going to be splitting it because half that it sounds like one voice in you that's talking to you, well, you should be ashamed, right? But that the voice that you hear in you, it's always the higher self is always trying to talk to you, but the ego is always talking to you too.
Hmm.
You should be ashamed. You should be guilty. You should. If there's anytime ever the word should, it's ego. My thing is don't should on me. Like if I don't talk to them
I like
anymore, but
that should be on a t-shirt. Don't show
right?
me.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like I mean I don't talk to my mom anymore, but if I when I used to, you should and I'd be like, don't should on me. Do
Yeah.
not should on me. I determine what I'm going to do. You do not should anything on me,
Hmm.
right? There's nothing that I should be doing unless I decide I want to do it.
Yeah.
Okay? And then it's a decision, it's not a should.
Hmm.
So if it's a should, it's your ego. So it's whichever voice that you have allowed to have free reign in you, which no one ever teaches you how to listen to your higher self. So it's you teaching yourself now that you're aware of this. And so just imagine like your left arm and your right arm, whichever one gets the most exercise and working out is going to be the strongest muscle. And
Yeah.
so we want to atrophy the voice of the ego, the
Hmm.
persona, the personality, the one that makes you Tiff, right? All the programs and beliefs and everything that you have, your experiences, we want to atrophy that voice and we want to work out like crazy the voice of the higher self. And
Hmm.
you do that through positive self talk all the time. And higher self says talking out loud to yourself all the time. So, like, if you hear that voice in your head, well, you literally could be like, nope, there's no should that I should be doing for anything. And I choose not to have guilt. I blah, 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 whatever, and you're retraining that ego that it's not going to be the one
Yeah.
that's going to dictate anything about you. And so I'm like, really? We're supposed to be speaking this out loud constantly. That's what multiple people's higher selves have said constantly, because then you're speaking it out and those words are energy that are
Yeah.
going out there, right? So you're speaking out what you're deciding for your life, what you're creating for your life. The thought
Mhm.
is energy, but so are the words. So it's like doubly effective because you're having the thought, oh, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
I feel joy and peace with taking this year off,
Hmm.
right? And so affirmate that kind of comes along in the line with affirmations. My
Yeah.
life is full of joy and peace as I work on myself and turn my ears and my eyes inward, or whatever your affirmation is, whatever you want to say to yourself at that time. But it's constant, constant positive self talk. And that is one way that you're going to strengthen the higher self voice and atrophy the ego voice. And so, in this process, too, what we're doing is we're going to relax the ego or the persona voice. We're going to lull her to sleep, and then we're going to just invite and allow the higher self voice to be speaking in the afternoon session. So that's what we're doing. So you'll see in the video that I sent you, you may be conscious the entire time that you're quote unquote under, just in a relaxed meditative state. There's no under, you're just in a relaxed meditative state. But your conscious mind may decide to completely check out and not be here. So you could be a trance channeler, or your ego voice, your consciousness may stay and be like an observer. And so how people describe how that feels is they're like, yeah, it was just like I knew I had to say these things, like they were just pouring in me and I knew I had to say them. But yet at the same time, there's your ego over here going, did I just say that? Like, wow, that was interesting. I never would have said it like that, blah, blah, blah. Because you're conscious the whole time,
Yeah.
but you're hearing like the higher self voice just giving total permission for your higher self to just do the talking, and have the ego like step to the side, almost like
Yeah.
on a stage. It's just sitting on the side of the stage, but not
I'm
at the
hoping it
microphone.
just flows through me. Yeah, I'm hoping I don't
Yeah,
have to like I'm not my conscious isn't trying to actively think about things and like be like, "Oh,
right.
well, I want it's
Yeah.
just gonna flow."
Yeah. And you can have that sidebar conversation going on in your head. It's almost like you have a split brain where it's just like, well, wait a minute, why would I think of that? And channelers who like are like authors and speakers and stuff, they still will have that going on. There's this guy who writes these amazing books. His name is Paul Selig, right? Selig. Paul Selig. He has these incredible books. And if you listen to him talk, it'll be like he'll be channeling from his guides going blah, 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 blah. Wait a minute. Now Paul's interrupting with a question. He wants to know blah, 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 right? In the middle of when they're explaining something. Paul's having some doubt here and he's having a hard time with that because he thinks blah, 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 blah. How does that fit in with what you were just saying? So he has that whole like sidebar conversation thing going while he's channeling too. So it's not atypical for something like that to happen
Yeah.
if your conscious mind is very much there. It's just a matter of not letting that one have control of the conversation so that you can allow the higher self voice to be channeled through, just like he allows his guides to channel through,
Okay.
even though they may be saying something different than what his ego mind thinks or believes. So then he'll question it. He'll be like, well, how does that work? Right. So it's the same thing. It's no different. We're channeling. It's not hypnosis. We're channeling. Right.
That makes sense.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to end the recording, invite everyone back for part two, which is the channeling session. And we should, I'll just say this to you. Typically, we will land in, once I give you this relaxing guided meditation, we'll land in another life, call it past life. It's another life, right? That
Yeah.
your soul has experienced. We'll set the intention in the meditation. I set the intention that it's a life that is in some way relevant to the life that you're living now. Um, but not everyone's higher self shows them a past life, just as an FYI. So don't panic if we don't see one,
Okay.
because then later on, when I ask, the higher self will be like, it's not relevant. Like
Yeah.
it's totally not even relevant. But typically we do. And then typically we'll go to what do you do in between lives? But again, not everyone sees what they do in between lives. They literally may just jump into another life, and then I stop it because we only have time to look at one life in this session, not two. But if we have time for the life in between lives, if your higher self takes you there, we'll look at that. If not, it just means that that wasn't relevant for you either.
And
So
when you record, do you also like type up the answers to the questions or is it
yeah,
just
I'm typing the whole time.
okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So if your higher self is super, super wordy and just like, blah, 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 I'm typing as fast as I can, but there's going to be spelling errors and stuff like that. And I go back and I try to clean up as much as I can, but I may miss things because some people's higher selves are so incredibly wordy that I
Mm-hmm.
just can't keep up. But you'll have the recording and it'll be in Word format, so you can go in and fill any
Oh,
blanks in
perfect.
there.
Okay.
but I do get most of it because I'm a really, really fast typer. So
Okay.
I do get most of it. And if they talk at a normal pace, I pretty much get everything almost verbatim.
Okay. That's
So,
awesome.
yes, I'm going to stop the recording, invite everyone back for part two. You and I hang around here for just